Okay, as promised, still with me are Mehdi Hasan and retired General McCaffrey. Mehdi, let me start with you. Very strangely, you have found yourself in agreement with what we know historically Donald Trump has been saying about Afghanistan, that we shouldn't have gone in and we shouldn't be there.
Yeah, as you say, Ali, when he wasn't president, he used to say Afghanistan is a mess, it's a waste of time, it was a mistake, we should bring the troops home, we need to get out. And I hate to agree with Donald Trump, but I think he was right then. And ever since he's entered the White House, he's now the third president in a row who has to deal with Afghanistan and the problem of the Taliban. And, you know, he's a guy who likes to win, Ali. He hates to lose, we know that. And every month, every week, his generals are showing him maps showing the Taliban controls more and more territory in Afghanistan. And he rightly thinks that America is not just not winning, to quote Defense Secretary Mattis, but losing. And he hates to lose. But what do you do about it? This is a president who doesn't have a clue what to do when it comes to international affairs. You guys at NBC reported that in July he had a meeting with his advisors about Afghanistan where he just wanted to sack the top general, even though it's not the top general's fault. And he even compared the situation in Afghanistan to a restaurant in New York that he used to visit in the 1980s. So that's how he sees the rest of the world. This is the guy who's the great deal maker. I wish he would actually do what a lot of experts have said over the years, which is try and find a deal, some form of grand bargain with the more realistic, less crazy parts of the Taliban, and get out of there. Don't send more troops to die in what is basically an unwinnable war.
That's what we've come down to, the less crazy parts of the Taliban. General, in a great article that Mehdi wrote, he quotes from Henry Kissinger saying, the conventional army loses if it does not win. The guerrilla wins if he does not lose. Do you share Mehdi's skepticism about the ability to win a war in Afghanistan?
Well, I thought that was perceptive in his part and also entertaining. But look, here's the problem. What are U.S. national security interests going forward? What are the objectives that President Trump will or will not articulate tonight? And then the least important thing is probably the tactical measures we try and get to. 4,000 troops clearly won't make a hill of beans difference. Having a viceroy for the region may probably help. The problem is the Afghan nation isn't going to have a unitary federal state under the rule of law in the coming 25 to 50 years. However, if we withdraw at this point, it implodes. It involves certainly Pakistan, which is acting quite logically, by the way. They don't want chaos in their rear area. Pakistan is not the central problem for Afghanistan. It's tribal factions murdering each other after a brutal civil war. So I don't think the president, this president, or the last two can get out. I think we're going to hedge our bets. We're going to cope. We don't want to see a giant, terrible disaster in the area. And so we're going to put some more resources in there and try and get through it. Mehdi, try and enlist support.
Mehdi, the problem, of course, is states that feel like vacuums into which groups that wish to attack the West find a warm hug. And Afghanistan has been that and can be that if Western nations and the coalition comes out. So what happens? What's your solution?
I don't think there is a solution. In fact, General McCaffrey tweeted earlier this year something I completely agree with, that there is no solution in Afghanistan. There's only kind of least bad options. And I don't think sending more troops, surging, escalating, is a good option. Of course, countries that are vacuums, provide safe havens for horrible groups. But at the end of the day, what if American military forces are contributing to that vacuum? What if they're making things worse, not better? A few months ago, I interviewed Hamid Karzai, former president of Afghanistan, who used to be a big supporter of U.S. military intervention. He was the guy America and the West put in power, basically, propped up in power. And he's saying, look, we cannot have more foreign forces endlessly bombing our villages, destroying our homes, arresting our people. That only increases resentment. It acts as a recruiting sergeant for the Taliban, and the whole cycle continues. When does it end? The idea that you send, I agree with General McCaffrey, 4,000 troops, I mean, absurd. Why does anyone think 4,000 or even 14,000 troops would make a difference in Afghanistan when Barack Obama had 100,000 troops there in 2010 and couldn't win the war? So the idea, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. On that basis, it would be insane to escalate militarily in Afghanistan.
Barry McCaffrey, General McCaffrey, on to Mehdi's point that Karzai says that this continuing American presence may be helping the Taliban recruit. What do you make of that?
I've spent some time with Karzai myself. I think he's an utter disaster. He has partially eroded the U.S. support, the European support for Afghanistan. He's going to bear witness in history to having been a big problem. Look, again, I think Afghanistan is a mess. You know, we got a president, we got a co-CEO, we've got governors who are murderous regimes and separate states in and of themselves. But at the end of the day, we don't want to see the place implode. When we went in, it was like 14th century. Now there's actually a road network, universities, TV stations. Women, although still subjected to virtual slavery in much of the country, do have an opportunity. So I don't think the Europeans and the U.S. are going to want to see Pakistan and Iran and the Central Asian republics and India sort this disaster out on their own. So again, I think we're going to try and cope with it going forward.
Mehdi, last word.
But Pakistan is one of the biggest problems, and we'll have to see what Donald Trump says about Pakistan's involvement supporting some awful groups on the ground. But the big question, Ali, is how is he going to define victory tonight? Is he going to define how he's going to win? Because the goalposts keep shifting. Was it defeating the Taliban? Was it defeating terrorism? Was it creating a democratic government? Was it stopping the drug trade? We failed on all of those objectives. This is now the longest war in American history, the most unpopular war in American history, and one of the most expensive wars in American history. $1 trillion spent.
Gentlemen, good talking to you. We'll all listen tonight, and we'll talk more about it afterwards. Mehdi Hasan, and with Al Jazeera English, and retired General Barry McCaffrey, MSNBC military analyst and top commander in the first Gulf War. Thank you to both.